Imagine being sent into a battle where an entire city is being destroyed around you. It's 1942. Nazi Germany has conquered huge parts of Europe, and now Hitler's army is pushing deep into the Soviet Union. But directly in their path is one city, Stalingrad. What happened here would become one of the largest and deadliest battles in human history. Millions would be killed, wounded, captured, or go missing across the wider battle. An entire German army would eventually be surrounded, and one decision would turn what looked like another German victory into a disaster. But to understand how this happened, we have to go back to the summer of 1942. Because at this point, Germany looked almost unstoppable. World War II had been raging for almost 3 years. Germany controlled or occupied enormous areas of Europe. The year before, Hitler had launched a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. At first, German forces advanced incredibly quickly, but they failed to knock the Soviet Union out of the war. So in 1942, Hitler tried something different. Instead of focusing everything on Moscow, Germany pushed south. There was something extremely valuable there: oil. Germany needed huge amounts of fuel to keep its tanks, aircraft, trucks, and war machine moving. The oil fields of the Caucasus were therefore an enormous prize. But there was another important target nearby. A city sitting along the Volga River, Stalingrad. The Volga was a major transportation route, and capturing the city could disrupt Soviet movement along the river. But Stalingrad also had something else: a name. It was named after Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. That gave the battle enormous symbolic importance. Soon, both sides would pour massive resources into controlling it, and in August 1942, the attack began. German aircraft heavily bombed Stalingrad. Buildings were destroyed, fires spread across sections of the city, and ironically, all of that destruction created a new problem for the Germans, because tanks are terrifying in open country. But a destroyed city? That's different. Collapsed buildings, rubble, narrow passages, and ruined factories created countless defensive positions. The German army entered the city expecting to take it. Instead, they became trapped in an exhausting fight for practically every section of ground. A building could be controlled by one side, then the other, and then contested again. Factories became strongpoints. Apartment buildings became defensive positions. Even small pieces of territory suddenly mattered, and the Soviets had another strategy: stay close to the Germans. If Soviet troops remained extremely close to German positions, it became harder for Germany to use its advantages in artillery and aircraft without risking its own troops. The battle was turning into exactly the kind of fight Germany didn't want, but Germany was still advancing. Slowly, Soviet defenders were pushed toward the Volga. At certain points, the Germans controlled most of the city. It looked like Stalingrad might finally fall, except there was one enormous problem. While Germany was focused on taking the city, the Soviets were preparing something much bigger. Look at the battlefield from above. Germany's strongest forces were concentrated around Stalingrad, but the enormous flanks protecting them were partly held by Allied Romanian and other Axis forces. The Soviets noticed this, and they developed a plan. They wouldn't simply keep throwing everything directly into Stalingrad. Instead, they would attack around it. The plan was called Operation Uranus. On November 19, 1942, Soviet forces attacked north of Stalingrad. The next day, another major attack began to the south. Thousands of troops, tanks, guns, and vehicles moved forward. The Axis defenses on the flanks couldn't hold. And now watch what happens. The Soviet forces from the north push south. The Soviet forces from the south push north, and several days later, they meet. The trap closes. Germany's 6th Army and other Axis troops around Stalingrad are now surrounded. Hundreds of thousands of troops are caught inside the pocket. This completely changes the battle. The Germans had spent months trying to trap the Soviets against the Volga. Now, they were the ones trapped. At this point, the German commander, Friedrich Paulus, faced an enormous problem. His army needed supplies, food, fuel, ammunition, medical supplies. Everything had to reach an army surrounded deep inside enemy territory. One possible response was to attempt a breakout while the army still had some strength, but Hitler ordered the 6th Army to hold its position. There was another plan. The German Air Force would supply the trapped army from the sky. There was just one problem: the amount of supplies required was enormous, and the airlift couldn't reliably deliver enough. As the weeks passed, conditions deteriorated. Supplies became increasingly scarce. the winter became brutally cold, and the Soviets tightened the encirclement. But Germany wasn't giving up yet, because another German force was coming, and they were going to try to break through the Soviet lines. In December 1942, German forces launched Operation Winter Storm. Their objective was simple: break towards Stalingrad and create a route to the trapped Sixth Army. At first, they made progress. For the soldiers trapped inside Stalingrad, this may have looked like their best chance. The relief force pushed closer, but Soviet resistance increased, and Germany couldn't break through. The rescue attempt stalled, then it was forced back. Now the Sixth Army was still surrounded, except it had used up even more time and supplies, and the Soviets were preparing to finish the battle. January 1943. The Soviet forces launched their final major offensive against the surrounded Axis troops. The pocket began shrinking. Airfields that had connected the trapped army to the outside world were lost. The remaining German positions were split apart. The battle that had begun with Germany attacking Stalingrad had completely reversed. Now Soviet forces were advancing through the ruins. On January 31, German Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus surrendered in the southern pocket. The remaining northern forces surrendered shortly afterward. By February 2, 1943, the Battle of Stalingrad was over. Germany had lost an entire field army as an effective fighting force, and the psychological impact was enormous. For years, Nazi Germany had appeared capable of smashing through enemy after enemy. Stalingrad showed that it could suffer a catastrophic defeat, and this is where you understand just how enormous this battle really was. The fighting lasted for roughly 5 months. Huge numbers of German, Soviet, Romanian, Italian, Hungarian, and other personnel were caught up in the wider campaign. Casualty estimates vary depending on exactly what is counted, but combined losses across the battle and surrounding operations reached staggering levels. The city itself was devastated, and of the German troops who entered Soviet captivity after the surrender, only a fraction would eventually return home years later. But the biggest consequence wasn't just the number of casualties. It was what Stalingrad represented. Germany had pushed deep into Soviet territory expecting another major victory. Instead, the Soviets had surrounded and destroyed one of Germany's most important armies. And from this point forward, the Eastern Front increasingly began moving the other direction, west, toward Germany. Stalingrad wasn't the end of World War II. There were still more than 2 years of devastating fighting in Europe. There would be Kursk, D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, Berlin, and countless battles in the Pacific. But Stalingrad had changed the momentum of the war. A battle Hitler wanted to turn into a symbol of German victory became one of Nazi Germany's greatest defeats. And the craziest part, for months, Germany fought desperately to capture one city, only to realize far too late the entire battlefield around them had become a trap. If you want me to cover another insane battle from World War II, comment which one I should do next. And subscribe, because the next story might be even crazier.